Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and on this episode, we will be talking about the AFC South position battles that are shaping up after free agency and those different things, cuts, all those different things. We're going to check those out with the Titans, with the Texans, with the Colts, and with the Jaguars in just a moment. Of course, we have to open up the show, though, with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. We open that up, open the show up every time with the Get It Off Your Chest segment. And we're going to keep it in the AFC South with this one here. Got to shout out Derek Stingley Jr. He just got paid. No, it's not Friday night, but he just got paid 3 years, $90 million, an extension from the Houston Texans, ties him to the team through 2029. Now, plenty are wondering how is that to 2029? Because, of course, it's fourth year, fifth year option, and then you have 3 years in the deal, 27, 28, and 29. So there you go. But this deal makes him the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. Of course, that was J.C. Horn, not even a week ago, I believe, or maybe a week ago. But hey, it was pretty recently. It was J.C. Horn. Now it's Derek Stingley Jr. And of course, before I go on, shout out to David Mulgeta. He is the agent for Derek Stingley Jr. and for J.C. Horn and for Jalen Ramsey. If you don't know, those are the top three highest paid cornerbacks in the NFL. He's the agent for all three. He's also the agent for the top two highest paid safeties, and Antoine Winfield Jr. with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Derwin James with the Los Angeles Chargers. So shout out to David Mulgeta putting in work as an agent there, athletes first. He definitely is about his business, as you can tell. But getting back to Derek Stingley Jr., he gets paid 3 years, $90 million. Now, a lot of people were wondering why did they trade Laremy Tunsil? Now, here is the reason. You have young stars, you have C.J. Stroud, you have Will Anderson, you have Derek Stingley Jr. You have to eventually pay them. Somebody's got to go. That's where Tunsil had to go. It is what it is. They'll figure it out, and we'll see what they figure out, I should say, when it comes to that offensive line, especially missing an offensive tackle and a starting guard from last year. Albeit it wasn't necessarily the greatest combination of talent they had up front or just in terms of how they played. But I will say that they let him go. They let Tunsil go for the specific reason to get ready to sign their young stars. And Derek Stingley is the first of those dominoes to fall. So salute to him. Get paid, young man, get paid. Because the NFL is not for long, and that money could be offered not for long. And I salute you for getting that bag. That is the Get It Off Your Chest segment for this episode. But like I mentioned before we got started into the show, I was gonna talk about Derek Stingley Jr. But before I talked about him, I did mention that we were going to talk about these AFC South position battles that are shaping up. Now, you've had free agency, you've had some trades, you had all those different things happen. But now, free agency's kind of slowed down. Signings are happening, but not as many, huge or what people would think is impact signings are happening, outside of, people looking towards the draft. So some of these positions are going to stay the same, maybe add a rookie to through the draft or free agency, or a rookie free agent. But other than that, a lot of these positions are going to stay the same, or stay similar to the same. Of course, trades, training camp, stuff like that. But one of those positions, I'm going to start with the Tennessee Titans, by the way. And for them, it's actually a linebacker battle. There is going to be a linebacker battle opposite of Cody Barton, who came over from the Denver Nuggets. Good gracious. The Denver Broncos. I guess I'm just thinking basketball for some reason. But anyway, he came over from the Denver Broncos. First you had him, Kenneth Murray Jr., but Kenneth Murray Jr. got traded to the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, the Titans move up 50 picks in this trade as well. Losing their seventh, gaining a sixth. So now there is a hole next to the newly acquired linebacker. And of course, with the Titans and with what Chad Brinker, who's the Titans president of football operations, and General Manager Borgonzi, or Mike Berganzi has stated, they stated, they want to kind of build things for the draft, get an X amount of picks in the top 3 rounds, or just over the next years they want so many amount of picks to kind of build up this roster through the draft. With that being said, I don't see them jumping out there to go get a free agent that's going to put next to Barton in the middle. They could, but just for right now, I don't see it. And they could add somebody in the draft. However, I'm going to go based off of what the pieces they have right now. One of those pieces is Mr. James Williams. He's a converted linebacker. He actually played safety at the University of Miami, or the U, as many know it. Now, of course, he is right now on ESPN.com. He's listed as the starting linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. Now, of course, a lot could change between then, but I'm just going to kind of go over what I think about him. He's definitely a versatile linebacker. He plays some special teams. He also has very good mobility side to side on the field, can get there, which is expected because he's a safety playing linebacker. Just the intricacies of it, with what shoulder to take on blocks and how to field and spell things. He'll learn that over time, and probably learn that a lot more last season. Now, one thing also with him being that he is a safety, he's probably got better coverage. Things in which you would usually expect from a linebacker. Definitely can see him. Definitely doing some things. The zones, filling the zones when it comes to pass coverage, and then also maybe doing a few man-to-man things when it comes to maybe running backs or linebackers, perhaps running backs or tight ends. I mean, so it ought to be interesting just to see how they see him and view him. But James Williams definitely has all the tools in the toolbox to be a very good linebacker in the NFL. And for a 7th round pick from the 2024 draft, hey, that's definitely a good thing that you're getting out of him in terms of potentially being a starter on this team in his 2nd year in the NFL. But of course, there is competition at the position, and there is an Otis Reese IV. Now, he's been with the team for a minute, wasn't necessarily brought in during the Borgonzi and Brinker before them. I believe he was brought in before them, but he does have athleticism just like James Williams does. Side to side, just hasn't taken that next step for some reason. I don't know why or how or anything in that nature, but he just hasn't taken that next step. He has made some plays. Had an interception last year, but he just hasn't taken that next step. He is a walking box of talent, and he definitely can do some things. But we'll see, as training camp and those different things come around, whether he's able to take that next step in his journey at linebacker, or if he's going to continue to be at the same level. If that's the case, James Williams continues to progress at linebacker, then it is what it is, and Otis Reese is just going to be a backup. But of course, there is one other guy to mention in this linebacker situation and battle, I should say, in Tennessee, and that's Cedric Gray. Now, we did not see him much in 2024. He hurt his shoulder, was out most of the season. But the 2024 4th round pick, out of North Carolina. He showed a lot of things on tape from North Carolina. I got out there, did a few things, towards the end of the season for the Tennessee Titans. However, it's a lot of question marks when it comes to him. So we're not sure what all he can do on the football field from a professional standpoint. So it's going to be interesting just to see how he's able to develop, and he gets his time to go in, play during the preseason, what he does in the scrimmages where, of course, those aren't necessarily on film for, all the public to see, and just what he's able to do with the different, practices and training camp and building a day on a day and a day and a day. We'll see what happens when it comes there. But those three, it ought to be interesting. If I had to pick a starter today, I would say it's James Williams. But, there's a lot of time between now and the beginning of the season, and we'll see what ends up happening. And who knows, they may draft a linebacker to just step right in there as well. I mean, I think do I think they can do that? No, not necessarily. Maybe a guy for depth. But right now it's these three guys, and if I had to pick one, I'm going to pick the ascending James Williams over Otis Reese and Cedric Gray. Maybe Cedric Gray starts to ascend as well, but currently, right now, there's just too many question marks when it comes to him playing on the field. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to dive into the Texans. They've got an interesting scenario at one of their positions in the secondary. I'm going to tell you what that is and give you all the players in that game when we come back after this commercial break.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are two of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
And we are back on touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned on episode 326, this episode, we're going to be talking about positional battles that are shaping up early in the off season for the teams in the AFC South. Now, I mentioned the Titans and talked about the linebacker position, but the next team I want to talk about is the Houston Texans, the AFC South division winner 2 years in a row. Going into this season, a lot of change going on with the offensive line. You don't know what all is going to be there. But one position where there's talent aplenty, and there's just going to be some interesting things in terms of scenarios with pieces on the field, that is the secondary. The secondary, and just to be more specific, the safeties and the nickelback position. Now, last year, Eric Murray was a guy that got a lot of playing time at the safety position, the nickelback position for the Houston Texans. Very versatile piece. Now he's gone to inside a new contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars, probably going to start there at safety for them. But it wasn't like the Texans didn't have pieces there. Now, you go into last season, Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward were the starting safeties. Now, if you don't remember Jimmy Ward, he's a former San Francisco 49er. So there's a tie with D'Amico Ryans and him. But anyway, they were listed, I believe, as the starting safeties to start the season. But neither one of them finished the season, actually. Kalen Bullock and Eric Murray and I believe other players at the safety position kind of showed up. And, that's how they kind of ended things out for the season. So going into this season, of course, you have Ward and you have Petrie back, but also you have an experienced or a little bit of an experienced Kalen Bullock, the 2024 pick out of USC last season. And you have CJ Gardner-Johnson, who they traded for from the Philadelphia Eagles, sending one of their linemen they were not very happy with. I believe Kenyon Green. They sent him on to the Philadelphia Eagles. I guess they're still trying to figure out that O-line. But anyway, we're not talking about the O-line. We're going to keep it on the secondary. But bringing in CJ Gardner-Johnson to add to this talented safety crew. Now, only three of them can play, but I will say three of them just because there's a lot of versatility because CJ Gardner-Johnson, Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie have all played nickel and played safety. So a lot of versatility when it comes to these three guys. Kalen Bullock, definitely a safety, but he does his thing back there. But so I'm going to kind of go through the pieces that they have and what I think will happen or could happen when it comes to them. Now I'm going to start with Jalen Petrie. He can play both safety and nickel, like I mentioned. He was very, very key to the things that they did last season. He was when he was playing with his hair on fire out there, Yes, that defense took it up another notch, especially in that secondary. I mean, he can make some things happen. He's physical. He's more physical, I would say, than he once previously was. Because at some point, he might have made some business decisions, but but he's not doing that anymore. And to me, for this defense, he could be a piece that could be used kind of like a Kyle Hamilton for the Baltimore Ravens a couple years ago when they were, moving it towards the line of scrimmage, blitzing, lining up in the slot, all those different things. Jalen Petrie could potentially be used like a Kyle Hamilton in this defense, which that would be, putting all of his skills on display, which I think would be very, very interesting. And I could see that potentially happening for him. Now, switching over to the next guy, I'm going to look at CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, CJ Gardner-Johnson did make plays. Beginning of his career, he was actually a slot corner for the New Orleans Saints. Plenty don't know that. But yes, he eventually, matriculated back to playing safety. Been pretty solid there, made some plays, made some hits, made some key turnovers for for the Eagles and then the Lions and then back to the Eagles again. Yes, that was a journey for him, especially in the media, if you know what I mean. And you kept up with CJ Gardner-Johnson there. But I digress. He is a talented safety that does make plays, going to add to that room. So I would say he's probably going to be at the free safety spot. I could see him definitely there, or you could see him hovering towards the line of scrimmage. He is that versatile a safety that he can do those different things. So, it's going to be interesting just to see what happens there with him. But he's going to be involved in one of those safety spots. I don't see him coming in off the bench. The next guy, Kalen Bullock. Now, he's a ball hawk. He had, 5 interceptions, tied for first on the team with Derek Stingley Jr. So there's not a way, unless he just, does, just bad during the preseason and kind of falls off. There's not a way I can see Kalen Bullock going back to the bench. No, I don't see him going back to the bench with the depth they have at safety. He definitely be a guy playing either free or strong. More than likely, be honest, probably put him more in a little bit of a roaming type thing. That would be best for him, just to where he can be in situations to make plays. Yeah, he could come down, but he is versatile enough to do so and make some tackles. And he is big enough to, I believe he's about 6'2", 6'3". But, it definitely is a guy that makes plays. So to me, you would want guys that are going to make plays on the field. So I can see him being out there. And lastly, I've got Jimmy Ward. Now, Jimmy Ward, a little bit older than all the guys that are out there. Maybe him and CJ Gardner-Johnson are closer to age, but I don't see him being in the rotation. Now, he can play corner. He can play in a pinch. He can play corner. He can play safety, and he can play nickelback. So he's kind of like your all-star reserve right there to me. That's what I see from Jimmy Ward. Now, they did extend him. I kind of surprised a lot of people. They extended him one more year last year. So this is his last year under contract with the Houston Texans. So to me, use him like an all-star reserve, or if there's someone out there that needs some secondary help and they need a versatile player, Jimmy Ward would be their guy. So, it definitely is going to be interesting just to see how they're able to kind of configure the defense and put all these guys out there. Now, we have seen a defense where there's been 3 safeties on the field before with a couple different teams. So not to say that isn't possible, but to me, just how the Houston Texans defense is, I would say, you're going to have 3 of those guys on the field pretty much at all times. That's my thinking. But we'll see what happens when it comes to the Houston Texans, how they figure that out. We're going to slide on over now to the Indianapolis Colts. And what battle they have going on. That is the quarterback position, Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Indiana Jones. Yes, they started calling this man Indiana Jones. Nah, it doesn't vibe with me. But hey, it is what it is. That's what they want to do, and that's who they are. They want to make him out to be Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford, nah, I'm sorry, man. I ain't do it. But as far as Daniel Jones, they bringing him in for competition with Anthony Richardson. Of course, he of the New York Giant days, he had one season of 15 passes, touchdowns, over 15 touchdown passes for a year. One season. That was, I believe, his first season. That was it. Other than that, nah. So 15 is about the high. So, it kind of makes you a little squeamish kind of thinking about that. I don't know about that. But anyway, hasn't necessarily been great consistently throughout his career. If some may say he's not really been that great at all, which I can't be mad at them for saying that. But 1 year, $14 million deal to land in Indianapolis to be that competition that Chris Ballard talked about, who's the Colts general manager. He talked about at the combine. So here is the competition. It's Daniel Jones. Now, if he beats him out, beats Anthony Richardson out, then that's when things get very, very interesting. If he's to beat him out, do you try to trade Anthony Richardson if he has, provided, trade value and you get back what you think you want to get back? Do you just ride it on out? And, if Daniel Jones gets injured, then you put him back in. I mean, those things, there's a lot of myriad of different things. Don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Of course, these two still have to go through OTAs and training camp and the season as well. And of course, there's injuries and all different kinds of things that can happen. So, to me, in my opinion, if Daniel Jones beats out Anthony Richardson, then it's over for Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. And I'm pretty sure that Anthony Richardson knows what is at stake. And I'm pretty sure he's training. He's been injured. The first couple seasons, made some bad decisions, but he's also made some incredible ones. Like the time he dropped back and he stumbled, still threw a strike like 60 yards down the field on the money to the Colts wide receiver for the touchdown. I don't think I've ever seen somebody's arm that strong. And he got hit, by the way, and didn't really get to follow through the throw, which is amazing that he has that type of arm talent. That is incredible. However, it hasn't been consistent. The accuracy with the short, deep ball, reading the defenses, making just different decisions. It hasn't been always consistent. So this is a huge season for Anthony Richardson. He has to be the guy. This is it. Because, of course, you have your fourth year coming up, and then your fifth year option, which a club can decide whether they want to pay you for another year or not. They could decide in Indianapolis to move on if things don't work out well. Even with the fourth year, they could potentially trade him if things don't work out well. But we're going to assume that he understands and he kind of steps up to the equation. Honestly, I see Anthony Richardson being the starter in Indianapolis. This is what I see for right now. Of course, we still, like I mentioned, have OTAs. You have training camp. You have a draft. You have all these different things. Do I see them drafting a quarterback? No. But or putting a high priority on it? Definitely no. But we'll see what happens when it comes to the Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones battle. I'm definitely something to keep my eye on when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the last team in the division. No, I'm not talking about the last team because they weren't last in the division. That was the Tennessee Titans. But they're just the last team in the order of teams I'm talking about, people. Don't do that. But we're going to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the battle that's coming there when we come back on Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South. And like I mentioned before the commercial break, we're going to go down to Jacksonville for the last position battle. Now, that position battle, when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, is going to be who's going to be opposite Tyson Campbell at corner. Now, Tyson Campbell is a corner that they backed up the Brinks truck to. paid him big time money to be their star corner, but we don't know who's opposite. Last year it was Ronald Darby for a majority of the season. Of course, you did have a few other guys, which one I'm going to mention in a second. But yeah, Ronald Darby is not there anymore. He just recently signed a 1 year, $2.5 million deal with the Texans, gives them much needed depth. I don't think they signed him to be a starter. So, we'll see what happens there. But, it gives them depth at the cornerback position, which will be pretty interesting to watch and see. When it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, they've got to figure out that cornerback position opposite of Tyson Campbell. Now, of course, this means Tyson Campbell has to stay healthy too, which I know a lot of Jacksonville fans are hoping he stays healthy and is that guy that they paid to be the guy at corner. But getting to the two guys that are in the position battle. Now, one of those guys is Monteric Brown. He's a guy that played more outside last season, can cover and will go at it. He'll go at it out there. He's definitely a strap up out there, and he definitely a fight. And that's something you like to see from a guy that's definitely trying to win a job, keep a job, and make good things happen for his team. Now, in 7th round pick in 2022, he's definitely defied the odds in terms of stepping in there and being a 7th round pick and sticking on the team for a length of time. Of course, he's talented. Of course, the roster is talented. Hanging on this talented roster, he's doing this thing. But you just wonder about all the abilities he has. He is talented. He can run. Is he going to continue to be the guy? Of course, they are invested in him to a point, but he still is a 2022 7th rounder. So, he's going to have to be extra good at that outside cornerback position to keep off the next gentleman, off his heels. From taking that potential spot. So it'll be interesting just to watch how he kind of deals with that pressure, knowing that there is someone else nipping at his heels to take that position there. And that guy I want to mention is Jerry Jones. Now, Jerry Jones, people, you're probably looking at me like, what? He played in the slot. Well, I totally get that, but they signed Jordan Lewis, who is that was the top nickelback on the market, made him the highest paid nickel in the NFL. So I don't think they're going to be moving him outside or doing any things like that. They may, do it from time to time and all those different things, but I think primarily they're going to want to use him at the nickel. So with that being the case, that means Mr. Jerry Jones, you might have to relocate, sir. And that means playing on the outside a little bit more now. I wasn't the first one to mention that. I have to shout out to Kyle Nash and Travis Holmes. Here's where I kind of got the idea. The Duval Dive podcast. Got to shout them out. If I had a bell, Kyle, I would just hit it and say ding, because he usually does that on their show. But anyway, it's the place where I first heard that. It's definitely interesting just to see how he's going to do outside. Is he going to, adapt and everything and get used to just being out in space, just a little bit further out in space? Now, even you're inside, you got a two-way go, whether it's inside or outside if you're a wide receiver. So definitely, it's good to not necessarily have as much space to work with when it comes to guarding someone and covering someone, I should say. But it'll be interesting just to see how he adapts to being out there in the space and the coverage and just being on an island outside. There's a lot less help when you're outside than when you're inside. You have the linebackers toward the inside. You could have a corner toward the outside or your safety potentially. So there's a lot of different things going on there. You could get some man-to-man defense. You could get some other different things. But it's just going to be interesting to see how he develops. We know he's a competitor. We know he definitely leads it all on the field and is going to do everything he can to make some things happen. It's just going to be interesting just to see with Brown and Jones, which one gets the most leverage to be the guy and which one goes to the bench. Because honestly, I don't see Jordan Lewis going to the bench unless he just plays terribly, starting for the Jacksonville Jaguars at their nickelback position. Which also, interesting note here, Darnell Savage, he was a big-time signing from the Green Bay Packers. They brought him in to play nickel last year, and in the system they were running last year. Haven't heard much about him playing anything. Maybe they move him back to safety. Maybe they do something different. I don't know. Maybe he ends up being available. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But for right now, we're talking about the outside position, Jerry Jones and Monteri Brown. It's going to be interesting just to see those two young guys battle it out and who ultimately wins that position. But I know one thing. We ultimately had a great show. And this is the end of the Touring the AFC South show, episode 326, early 2025 AFC South battle. It's going to be interesting to see what happens between the Titans linebacker battle, the secondary in terms of the safety and nickelback with the Texans, the Colts, Daniel Jones versus Anthony Richardson, and the Jacksonville Jaguars when it comes to Jerry Jones and Monteri Brown. Definitely is going to be interesting. But what's even more interesting is that you go follow me on social media. Of course, I am on the artist formerly known as Twitter at Mike Patton 82. That's MikePatton 82. And of course, that's on Blue Sky as well. You can also follow me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And you can find Touring the AFC South on the Mike Patton Podcast Network as well. That's on YouTube, by the way, as well as you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. Go like, subscribe, all those different places. Share the videos to your friends. I know you got some friends that's interested in these AFC South teams. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode 236 of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.